Last week, an Army major, a medical doctor, a psychiatrist, killed 13 and wounded an additional 29 soldiers at Fort Hood, Texas. The Obama administration and top military leaders have quickly discounted any Islamic terrorist implication in the attack. Now, more and more facts are coming to the surface concerning the situation and revealing that Mr. Hassan had involvement in a great deal of Islamic jihadic type activities. The military was well aware of these activities. Mr. Hassan's fellow officers at Walter Reed Hospital heard and witnessed these things and reported them, yet nothing was done. Now, as more and more people are looking at the situation, this failure is attributed commonly to the phenomena of political correctness. Now, political correctness is not anything new. We have seen it particularly in the past 30 or so years. I remember the Clinton administration, for example, pushing out competent combat officers and replacing them with politically correct ones. I remember that was a particular concern at the time. After 9/11, Mr. Bush made his contribution to political correctness by publicly proclaiming that Islam is a religion of peace. I believe that he greatly undermined his own position and that of his administration by doing so, and set the stage for his replacement now in this country. Now the country has a president who, for all practical purposes, is a Muslim. Mr. and Mrs. Obama sat under and embraced the ministry of Reverend Jeremiah Wright at his church in Chicago for 20 years. Reverend Wright's black militant theology and jihadic Islam are sisters. Now, the president has said that we'll have to look at all of and investigate thoroughly all of the situation in the incident at Fort Hood before jumping to any conclusions. And I want to assure you that you can be sure that when everything is said and done, the administration and the military will simply conclude that Mr. Hassan was under great stress and he just snapped, and that's what caused the situation. The implication for Islam will be dismissed. Now, I want us to consider this problem from a much broader perspective because I feel it's very, very important for this nation. Following the Yom Kippur War in 1973, Muslim leaders met in Morocco in an effort to formulate a new strategy concerning Israel and the West. I remember a picture being published in the newspaper at that time showing the King of Saudi Arabia holding an ancient firearm, an ancient rifle, pointing toward the West and indeed declaring war on the West. Now that war has been waged through economic means rather than military means for the most part. Since that time, trillions of petrodollars have been transferred to the oil-rich Muslim states. Much of that money has come back and been reinvested in the United States, and it has bought control or controlling interest in banking, in real estate, and in media. And this is, to a large extent, the reason for the extreme political correct treatment of Islam in this country. There is a growing influence of Islam in America. Now, I believe that this trend will continue in America until the nation is brought under complete Muslim control and eventually Sharia law. America is in the process of selling a controlling interest of the nation itself to Islam. American political leaders continue making the deal, and the American public ignores the process, sticks their head in the sand, simply because it's easier to do that than it is to come to grips with reality and truth. Now, just to emphasize my point concerning political correctness, I want you to imagine for a minute that instead of a Muslim officer, suppose for a moment that the attack at Fort Hood had been perpetrated by, let's say, a white, very vocal, evangelical Christian officer. Do you think that the administration and the military would be slow to jump to conclusions if that were the case? I think not. Now, the Bible paints a picture of the end time that prophets spoke about, and of a global government marshaling its forces in an attempt to attack and destroy Israel. And I believe that we're seeing the preparation for this very thing at this time. And unless there is a massive repentance in this nation, the United States will take its place alongside of other nations approaching Israeli forces at Har Megiddo under the banner of Islam. And very likely, and it appears likely at this point, that Islam will be the unifying factor bringing all the nations in its opposition to Israel. Now, if you think about that, that should be a sobering fact, a sobering thought for all of us today. So I want to leave that with you today, and thank you for hitting the website, the Zamok site. Join us from time to time as we do look at current events in a biblical perspective.